Oh shit, the feels, bro, the feels. So now we have a new Fate series that begun with a Fate Grand First Order. Basically, it's pretty much a mixture of the nostalgia factor with the new characters that show up. So the story begins at the Chaldea observation center, and we pretty much get introduced right away to obviously the protagonists. We come to find out Mash and obviously Ritsuka Fujimaru. Uh, and obviously the similarities, and actually the very first character we get to see is pretty much Olga Mari Aslia, who's pretty much like the Rin of this series, because they both turn out to be mages, but she's also the director of the Chaldea Observation Center, and has a huge role and a huge responsibility. And obviously, midway through the episode, she tags along with Masha and Ritsuka. It's funny because the way she was acting towards Ritsuka kind of reminds me of the way that Rin kind of reacted to the way she reacted to Shira right at the very beginning, because obviously they're both higher class mages, and obviously they get referred to. Well, Ritsuka got referred to as a commoner. He turns out to be the master, and obviously Mash ends up being the servant. Now it's a huge plot twist. Obviously, the observation center ends up getting demolished.
We don't see the destruction, but we see people get fucked up left, right, and center. And obviously, Ritsuka runs to the scene, and that's where it interacts with Mash. Now, obviously, obviously, she ends up dying at that point.
Mash ends up well. She's about to lose her life, but she gets it spared in exchange. She becomes a demi servant, so she's not a full on servant. Which, when you look at the episode, it's even more impressive what she was able to do. The fact she withstood attacks from certain servants in this episode, and obviously there was a connection between Ritsuka and Mash throughout the episode, building obviously, and the more that the episode went on, and this is why I make the comparisons to Olga and Rin, because she came to accept and actually appreciate Ritsuka a little bit more, which is something that Rin did when it came to Shiro.
This is where the plot starts, and obviously they get set back in time now. According to this, from the previous Holy Grail War to from 2004 to 2016 in December, the world ceased to exist. Basically, the light of Chaldea ran out, so the world kind of ended in that regard. So that becomes a plot device by the end as well. This episode, again, there's a lot to take in this first episode. There's a lot to remember when it comes to the observation center of Chaldea, because obviously that's where they get sent back by the end of the episode.
The symbol on Ritsuka's hand, so obviously he's the master. One of the command seals actually gets, if you noticed, by the end, one of the command seals gets taken away. So I'm assuming whatever happened to get out that area that we were in at the final battle, when they get transported back to Chaldea, so something happened there. Once we get transferred into the city, because apparently the site from the previous Holy Grail War from 2004, apparently the world ended in 2016. So this is an ultimate dimension, if you will. They go back into 2004, pretty much from the site from the Holy Grail War. So now they're in deep, because now the servants are in town, and now they have to figure out the singularity F, I believe, is called. They have to figure out what went down, what went wrong, and obviously sort everything out. Grand total of 34 survived. Everybody else, not so much. Now, the figure that kind of made Mash into a demi-servant kind of gets obscured, but as the episode goes along. But speaking of characters, as soon as they show up, it doesn't take long for a servant to attack him. The very first servant we get introduced is to Archer. Yes, he has a different design, but obviously the voice actor is pretty much the same. So that was hype. Just seeing these servants again, mix it up, and it helps that the art and animation are on point. it usually is when it comes to Type Moon. They usually go all out. So yeah, and then who else shows up? At first, I thought it was Castor. I think we could all assume if you watch the first episode, she had the cloak and everything. We could assume that was Castor, but no, she turns out to be Lancer, which was a nice twist. Uh, she was still beastly. She turned everybody in that city to stone, and then she one the I guess the civilians she turned to stone. She ends up beheading because she's sadistic as hell. So she meets the traits of a caster, but then she pulls out this lance. So okay, that's where what the hell? And also the first she tries to use these chains on Olga and Ritsuka, which is which I'm assuming that's something that Caster tried to do through a curveball because and then she beheads the civilian. You see the blood gush out, so I'm like, oh shit. So, Mash puts up the defense. She actually puts up the defense against Archer. She was real impressive in this episode. The fact she was only a demi-servant, so she's able to fend off so many other servants like Archer and Saber. And I'll get into that in a minute because, boy, when you see what we thought was Lancer because obviously he has the same looks as Lancer, but he ends up being Caster, which I thought was a nice twist as well. He explains pretty much what's going on. That the Holy Grail went AWOL, it swallowed up, and I think it's Saber turns out to be evil. She goes completely emo. She turns Archer pretty much Berserker and I don't know if she turned it into Berserker. I think she did. Assassin and as well as Rider, they get turned as well. So pretty much they're working on the Saber. So as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh shit, here we go. So they have to find a way to take down Saber. In Caster's own words, is pretty much King Arthur, the original King Arthur, the original Saber of the series. So I'm like, there's no freaking way.
So Saber's commanding them. That becomes and obviously Archer becomes revealed to be the second in command. So obviously that's a troublesome duo for sure. And the first thing you notice when Lancer shows up, and obviously she turns everybody to stone, but she beheads one of the civilians who's turned to stone, and then you just see a gush of blood pop out. I'm like, holy shit, this chick is out of her mind. For a Lancer class, yeah. So that kind of threw me for a loop. But then it becomes pretty much a union between Olga and I guess Caster alongside Mash and Ritsuka to try and take down Saber and Archer. So that becomes like a war waiting to happen, and it was kind of condensed into this first episode, but it works because we get progression, and even though it's great to see Saber again, but she turned out completely badass. I mean, just look at this the design of her Excalibur when she's gone full on emo mode. It looked beastly as hell, and I gotta give props where is due to Mash for putting up the work. She withheld the obviously the emotional attachment is there between Mash and Ritsuka. Olga tries to prevent Ritsuka from stepping in. At first, she says obviously because you should have more faith. Says don't look away because she has more faith in your servant, which is kind of true. Again, there's more similarities between Rin and Olga, even though she's they're both very pompous as well at the beginning. Ritsuka just goes charging in, and then we get the power boost from Mash. A noble, and then you see Ritsuka right by her side fend off the attack, which is impressive in itself. They didn't get blown back. And then Mash finally awakens a noble phantasm, which again was beastly as all hell. It's a whole wall shielding the two of them. We're standing Saber's Excalibur, so that was impressive. So you know how strong Saber is from Unlimited Blade Works on Freight Zero. So yeah, and then you had the whole rematch. I guess technically the rematch between Lancer and Archer, even though technically Lancer was Caster this time, and it turned out to help him because Archer for the most part got pretty much owned at this point. Again, the animation, the fighting was on point as it usually is when it comes to Fate series. So yeah, taken down. And then I have to say, Caster was the beast of this episode, and he not only stepped up to take on Saber, but he actually took Saber out. They both get taken out by the end, and that's pretty much the end of the nostalgia factor, because you have the Saber class and you have the Archer class and the Lancer class by the end, as well as the Caster class being killed off. As soon as the Singularity F kind of gets resolved, who shows up? The first one I heard, I instantly popped in my mind was Gilgamesh, but Professor, I guess, Left shows up, aka the Gilgamesh of the series. He shows up to wreak some havoc. Like it becomes revealed he was the one that set off the shutdown at Chaldea. It was kind of obvious if you put two and two together, because he was nowhere to be seen. He obviously got reported to be dead. There was no sign of him. So as soon as he had something to do with it. Obviously, there's some hints here and there, but obviously what he did to Olga was kind of fucked up, because obviously there was some feelings between from her. Obviously, she ends up getting killed. I'm sorry, this is brutal as fuck. She gets roasted in I guess what is called the sphere. It's pretty much made from the sun. She gets fried to no end. She's pretty much killed off by the end, and then the site pretty much becomes unstable, and then we see Ritsuko waking up back at Chaldea. We get a reunion of a very touching reunion, by the way, of Ritsuko and Mash, and that's pretty much where the story ends. They get recruited to try and take care of business when it comes to dealing with Left. I guess now's going to become the antagonist of the series. And then you have the hardcore players, the other servants, they show up at the end, so I can't wait. That was hype, because this was the first episode and we got more on the way. They usually go all out with Tide Moon, that is, when it comes to these Fate series, so I can't wait to see what happens next. That's it from me. Let me know what you guys think down below. Comment, rate, subscribe. I try to break it down as best I could. Obviously, since this is an hour-long episode, so subscribe to the channel. Catch you guys later. Bye.